Welcome to this beginner and intermediate lesson for you mandolin players out there. This is a lesson on playing double stops in A, and there's a few elements we're going to do. We're going to use the tune You Are My Sunshine. I know it's a standard tune that some of you may know, but it's a good example of how we can add double stops. So that's our basis. We're going to start by just playing that melody, and then we'll look at a little bit of the theory, we'll learn our arpeggios, and then we'll look at how using the arpeggios can help build our double stops into You Are My Sunshine. This is aimed for beginner and intermediate players. For beginner players, mainly just try and make sure you can play the melody to You Are My Sunshine, and have a go at the arpeggios, and also have a go at the double stops if you can. And then for you intermediate players, make sure you can play the normal melody, and then the second half of this lesson is for you. Everything in this lesson, all the tab and a kind of worksheet that you can work along with this video is available from the link below, so there's no excuse not to be able to play any of these tunes. We're going to start by playing the basic melody to You Are My Sunshine. I'm going to have the metronome in. I'm not going to break it down or anything, we're just going to dive right in and play it. And I'm going to play it around twice. I'll play the melody and you should try and play along with me, and then we'll play it again straight after, and I'll jump onto the chords, but you carry on with the melody so you can hear how it sounds with the chords. The metronome's set to about 60 BPM, so you're about this speed. That's your speed for this. So it'll be after 3-4-1, there's a 3-note pickup, so that's why it's 3-4-1. Here we go, twice through. 3-4-1. And again. Second line. So that's our starting point for double stops in A. I highly suggest that you also have a little go at the chords. I've included the chords on the sheet, the worksheet below, because the chords are useful to know when you're adding double stops. The next thing we need to do is we need to know our arpeggios. So this is in the key of A, as this lesson is called Double Stops in A. There's 3 chords used in this, and they're the normal 3 chords you would find in A, and they are A, D, and E. 1, 4, and 5. So they're the 3 arpeggios that we need to know. We need to know our A arpeggio, D arpeggio, and E arpeggio. So again, I've written these out below, but in our A arpeggio, that's made up of 3 notes: A, C sharp, and E. And to make a full arpeggio, you just keep playing A, C sharp, and E on all the places on the neck. We're going to stay in first position for this, so that's our A arpeggio. So let's just try it together. About this speed, about that speed, and this will be 3. I'll count it 3 and 4 and 3 and 4 and. Yeah, let's try it again. 3 and 4 and. And now let's do the same with the D arpeggio, which is D, F sharp, and A. So it's all the combinations of D, F sharp and A in this lower regions of the mandolin. 3 and 4 and. Let's try that again. D arpeggio, 3 and 4 and. And then our third one is E, which is E, G sharp and B. So it's all the combinations of E, G sharp and B that we have. So let's try that together after 3 and 4 and. 3 and 4 and. Let's try that together again. 3 and 4 and. So there are 3 arpeggios that we need to know pretty well before we can start adding double stops. A, D, and E. Take a bit of time and get those really ingrained in your fingers. They should be really quick to recall. You should be able to say A arpeggio and just play it. The quicker you can recall your arpeggios, the quicker you can start knowing where your double stops are going to be. So highly suggest that those double stops become quite comfortable for you to play before you tackle double stops, because they're the starting point. My definition of a double stop is where you play 2 notes at the same time on adjacent strings. One of them is the melody note and the other is completely your choice. But normally, you would choose another note from the chord or another note from the arpeggio. So that's why your arpeggios come in useful, because when you look at a piece of music, you have the melody and then you have the chord above it, and that gives you everything you need to know what other notes you can add, and it'll sound pretty nice. There's another soft rule that is not a strict rule, but it's one I tend to lean towards, is that I like to add my double stops lower than the melody. So if my melody is here, I like to add my double stops below rather than above. That's just a personal preference. It's not the right way of doing it. That's just how I like doing it. So for the rest of this lesson, when you see my double stop version, it will have notes added lower, but don't let that stop you trying out double stop notes added higher than the melody note. To demonstrate how I go about adding double stops, I'm just going to focus on the first 3 bars of You Are My Sunshine plus the little 3-note pickup, so this phrase. Just going to talk about that in this video because the theory that I'm going to apply to that can be applied to the rest of it, so I don't want to go through every little phrase. So for me, there's 2 very obvious places in that little phrase where you would add double stops. On those 2 notes there, those 2 C sharp notes, and on those 2 A notes. So let's work out what notes we can add. Our melody note on there is this 4th fret here, that's a C sharp. And the chord being played at the moment is an A. So if we think of our A arpeggio, which is A, C sharp and E, the C sharp note's being used, which means to turn this into a double stop, we need to add an A or an E. So there's 2 options below and 2 options above. So that's adding an E down here. And then the next one, where I add an A. So I'm adding an A here, gives it that double stop. And then we can start going above. So I'm adding the open E. Or finally, option number 4. So I'm adding this A down here. So you've got 4 different options, and there is no right or wrong way of doing that. the one I would probably choose, just because I quite like the sound of it, is the second option I played, where I play this A here, because I can do a little slide into it. But there's nothing wrong with any of the others. So hopefully that makes sense where I've got those from. I've just added one of the other notes from the A arpeggio to that melody. So let's move on in the rest of this phrase. So again, I probably wouldn't add double stops over because it's quite fast moving. So I'm just going to stick to adding double stops on the longer notes, which in this instance is the two open A's on this one. So now the chord hasn't changed, we're still on an A chord, but the melody is now an A note. So if we go back to our A arpeggio, A, C sharp and E, the A is being taken up by the melody, so that leaves us with C sharp and E to find our double stops. So if I play so we can start by adding an A, adding a C sharp. And I've had to move my position down here to catch, there's the melody, so I've got my C sharp there. And then I can add an E with this E down here, and then we can start going above. So I've got my melody note there, and there's my double stop. And then finally, the open E again. So there's now 4 options you can do on that. And if we think of that as one big phrase, there's 4 options for the first set of notes we can add double stops, and 4 options for the second lot of notes we can add double stops. So there's now 16 options for adding double stops, hence why there's no right answer. They all sound nice. Or nothing wrong with any arrangement of those notes, because all of them sound nice with the chord that's being played because they're in the arpeggio and you've still got the melody going on. So it's now down to personal choice. So I would probably choose because I quite like the sound of them. So I've done that with the rest of the tune. I'm not going to go through it in such fine detail. Maybe have a little look at each, especially where the chord changes, and you can see that the double stop changes with the chord change. So when we're playing D, I'm adding an F sharp or an A or a D, and the same when we change to E. So I'm just going to dive straight in and play through the tune with the double stops, and you should try and play along. It might take a bit of practice. Yeah, best of luck. I'll have the metronome in again. This is the same speed as we did it earlier in the video, and it'll be after 3, 4, 1. Here we go. 3, 4, 1. Great, so we'll do that again, but this time I'll just play the chords so you can play the melody on your own. So we'll dive straight back in. Here we go again. 3, 4, 1. Second line. So there is our foundations for double stops in A. It's knowing the melody, knowing the chords, and then also knowing the arpeggios. Those three things combined give you all your nice double stops in A. I have two suggestions for further work related to this lesson. I mean, you could now apply this theory to any song or tune in A, but specifically try and write your own double stop version of You Are My Sunshine. And then also on the worksheet below, I've included the skeleton music for sort of a similar song, Oh Susanna. That is also quite useful to add double stops to. So I suggest you head over there, download the tab link below, and have a go at writing your own double stop version. And just experiment, find what you do and don't like about adding double stops. Find some people don't like shifting up and down the fret. If you want to keep it down here, that's totally fine. It's up to you. So I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope it has made sense. If you have any questions, head over to mandolin.com and drop me a message or comment below. And make sure you hit subscribe down here. Sign up to the mailing list at Mando Mike, and we'll see you next month.